Okay, is that it?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to your City Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. So the first order of business today is for me to have the honor and the privilege of presenting a proclamation for Susan B. Anthony Day in Leavenworth. And is Miss Samantha Fourier here? Come up, please, ma'am. How you doing? Good. I think that's good, right? So the City of Leavenworth, Kansas, a proclamation, whereas during the year 2020, the Leavenworth County Historical Society recognizes the achievements and contributions made in Leavenworth for the women's suffrage movement that promoted social and political change. And whereas Susan B. Anthony, women's rights activist and sister of Colonel Daniel R. Anthony, first visited Leavenworth in January 1865, advocating the rights of both freed slaves and women, and was a resident in Leavenworth when President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Her brother owned the Leavenworth Times, and whereas Leavenworth was the largest city in Kansas in 1867, when it became the first state in the Union to offer a popular referendum on women's suffrage. Susan B. Anthony campaigned here along with national women's suffrage activists such as Elizabeth Kdhe Stanton, and whereas Susan B. Anthony successfully led the campaign for women's municipal suffrage in Kansas in 1887, the first state to do so. The bill was signed by Governor John A. Martin on February 15th. She returned to Leavenworth in 1894 for the second state campaign, along with other suffrage and state leaders, Reverend Anna H. Shaw, Carrie Cat Chapman, Anna Diggs, and Laura Johns. And whereas the nephew of Miss Anthony, Daniel R. Anthony Jr., voted for the 19th Amendment as a Kansas congressman, and in 1923, introduced the Equal Rights Amendment in Congress. Now, therefore, I, Myron J. Mike Griswold, Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, Kansas, hereby proclaim February 15th, 2020 as Susan B. Anthony Day in Leavenworth. Congratulations. Sure. Yeah.
They'd like me to thank you all for the proclamation and CPB for their support as well, and that we look forward to anybody who'd like to come to our Susan B. Anthony celebration luncheon on Saturday at June's Northland. So thank you.
Be there.
Be there. Come on over here.
Yeah.
So old business, so the first agenda item under old business is consideration of previous meeting minutes. So we've got the minutes from January 28th, 2020, regular meeting. Any comments or discussion about the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the minutes from January 28, 2020, regular meeting.
Second. There's a motion and a second for this particular agenda item. We'll begin voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it. The vote is 5-0. The motion carries. The minutes have been approved. Next agenda item is second consideration ordinance 8122, special use permit 869 Sherman Avenue.
City Clerk Carla Williamson will handle this item. Mayor and Commissioner, this is second consideration for an ordinance that was first introduced on January 28th meeting, and this is to allow a special use permit for a two-family dwelling in an R16 zone district at 869 Sherman Avenue. There have been no changes since it was first introduced on the 28th, and this would require a roll call vote for approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this particular agenda item? I think Mr. Patterson came, and it's his property, and he talked when he came in late January. Any questions or comments? If not, we'll begin.
I don't think this is Mr. Patterson's.
Is that Mr. Patterson's?
His is on Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah, this is up the hill on Sherman.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Is it? Yeah.
You know what, I don't have the application.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Yeah.
This is Echelon Properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's right,
All
Echelon,
right, I'm sorry for
Yeah.
that, and I appreciate the correction.
Echelon Properties.
Okay. So we'll begin a roll call vote, beginning with Commissioner Preisinger.
All right.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, the vote is 5-0, the motion carries. Next agenda item is under new business. It's time for public comment. Any items that are not listed on the agenda or for a receipt of petitions. So if there's anyone in the public, in the audience tonight who wishes to come up and provide a public comment, please come up, state your name and address, and that's it.
All right, Brian Zosky, I own the property at 400 Fifth,
Okay.
and it was up for demolition. You guys had a list of items as far as roofing that needed to be done, windows, such, everything's been done on the house. The reason I'm here tonight is because I fly out of town on Sunday. I live in California.
Okay.
So we were able to to complete everything, and we did a little bit more. I mean, it's got new furnace, new plumbing in it, a lot of other things that weren't on your list.
Sure.
So I just want to, make sure that it's not on the list, so when I fly out, I can sleep at night, and, that everything's taken care of. Because I am trying to improve it. I'm on a shoestring budget. Me flying back here is kind of expensive and takes me away from work.
Are you the owner, sir?
I am the owner.
Okay, right, that's,
So,
right. And I think you sent us some.
I did send you some
Photos.
photos, but it's since been completely
Okay, good,
painted. That
good.
was the day before, and that following day,
Okay.
I was able to complete all the painting on it. So
Great.
if we can pull that thing down off of there, I'd greatly
We
appreciate
can't
it.
pull it down officially tonight, but I think it's gonna come up here in like 2 weeks. or-
Scheduled for the 25th.
So I don't foresee any
Okay,
any
good, because
problems.
like I said, I'm gonna be out of town.
Sure, I got it. Did you maybe?
Will Mr. Swope be here?
He can be, I mean,
Yeah.
I know you guys like seeing his cheerful face.
Did you,
Always there.
did you, on your email, did you send it to Ms. Julie Hurley also?
I think I sent it to everybody that was
Okay,
on your
okay.
webpage. There was 5.
All right,
So I just wanted to make sure I covered all my
sure,
bases.
well, good, thank you.
And I appreciate your patience in working with me and
Appreciate you
giving
coming
me
back.
extra time all those times.
How long did it take you when you came back?
Too long, months. I mean,
Well, I know that, but in terms of when you recently came back though, right, to finish it up?
Yeah, I recently came back. And then I've got some other business here in town too.
Okay,
so.
all right. Well, thank you.
Coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming
Mr.
back.
Mark. Yep.
Okay, is there, Mr. Wooten, come up and give us your name and address, please, and what you'd like to present to the commission.
Good evening. My name is Buddy Wooten. I live at 220 Arch Street here in Leavenworth. I represent a group of citizens that are concerned about the Wagon Tails Dog Park, and we appreciate the opportunity to address the city council, city commissioners. We have a group that are here that with me tonight as well. In 2008, Ms. Rui Gibson formed a dog park committee with other residents and worked with the city. This local committee raised $30,000, and the dog park was built on city property. And since then, the park it opened in 2010, and the park's been greatly enhanced. The committee was instrumental in installing donated benches. Most of those are in memorial, and planted trees. And the city has the rec department has really worked hard to maintain the dog park and it has improved over the years. At the time, there was a dog park a rec department representative that would come to the committee meetings and take our input back to the city and the rec department, and we instituted a lot of changes based on those things. For instance, there's now water up there for the dogs. There's a porta potty for people to use. There's waste bags that people can use but don't always use. But at some point in time, the rec department took over the dog park, and the city, or basically the park committee wasn't really needed and kind of went away. The dog park's a great place to take animals. If you've been up there, I think Mr. Pretzer used the dog park.
Quite often.
But in recent months, it seems like the incidents up there and the conflicts between dogs and even between owners has greatly increased. There are a number of instances that have been reported to police. I don't know the number, but they continue, and most go unreported. If a dog is attacked, a lot of times the owner wants to take his dog to the vet, or the person who owns the dog that initiated the incident leaves. So there's no real recourse in that regard. Most recently, Sunday, there was another incident that was reported on Facebook, but we don't know if the police were called or not. We have people that are afraid to go to the dog park. Rhonda York, a certified dog trainer and behavioralist, recently wrote a letter to the Leavenworth Times talking about the problems up there, and she's decided the park isn't safe enough for her to take her dogs up there. A group of us use it on a regular basis, and we've expressed our concern to the city manager's office and the rec department. And basically, what we were told, the rec department met with the police, and they posted a sign with a phone number to call if dogs are unattended, and which is sometimes the case, or if dogs exhibit aggressive behavior. And as a group, we don't think this is adequate. We feel that we've had a little input to possible solutions. We would like to see measures incorporated that are proactive and preventative in nature and not just reactive and waiting till either a dog or a person is injured. Some of the ideas might include handing out park rules when people buy their city licenses. Non-neutered males could be banned from the park. I'm not saying, this verbatim, but just some ideas to work with the city to improve the park. Could install security cameras, or at least have more police officers stop up by the park, talk to people. And last but not least, violators could be fined and held accountable per the city ordinances. I mean, I don't know what the police department does when a complaint is filed, but the city ordinances say that if a dog attacks another dog, then that can be a $250 fine. If it happens again, that dog can be taken from the owner and even put down if necessary, if the fines aren't paid. And we would like to have a better working relationship with the city, and we would like to reform the dog park committee to have input with the city planner's office and the rec department. We just don't feel like we're being heard. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wooten. Any questions or comments for Mr. Wooten?
I do.
Mr. Preisinger?
Yeah, as many of you know, I use the dog park quite a bit. My wife does, and our dog, our golden retriever. And I talked to police chief about this, and there were 14 calls there last year. Those weren't all about dogs. A couple of them were medical emergency, or if somebody needed I'm not saying a heart attack, but something like that.
Right.
Sometimes police respond. He wasn't sure of those 14 calls, how many were dogs. 2 people have been banned. He did say, they see things on Facebook, doesn't give it any credence. And,
Right.
you know, I swear some people see, you know, bank robberies and they gotta get it on Facebook before they call the police. Please do call the police. They will respond. To your point on a dangerous dog. If a dog does attack another dog, and I know Mrs. Gibson told me about the one that someone was attacked this past weekend, at least it was reported that on Facebook. It's even the next day, it's not too late to report that, and you can give a description of the dog, possibly there's some witnesses or something like that, and they will, that is a dangerous dog, and they will be dealt with. But the police are not going to respond to a Facebook ad. And, you know, I think I was telling Mrs. Gibson, I literally broke up a fight between 2 adult men over a dog fight. It wasn't a bad dog fight, but, you know, the 2 men got into a fight, and I didn't think I needed to call the police, and they both left mad. But I don't know what can be done proactively. I'd hate to say, you know, a dog's got to go through a training class before they come in.
Right.
I think the only rule on dogs are dogs in estrus or in heat are not allowed. Am I correct in that? But as for non-neutered males, you know, I could see it on some dogs, but I've got a golden retriever. She's spayed female, but even as a male, I don't think you can get a golden retriever to bite anybody in any situation. They usually lay down, won't fight.
Yeah.
So I know it's tough, but one thing I really encourage everyone is if you see something that's out of line, do make the call. And on your point on wanting to be heard more, please come to the Parks and Rec Board meetings. What are they, monthly? Do you know, Mr. Tedder?
I'm not sure, but
I think they hold them monthly. It's under the auspices of that, and you will be heard.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
a good point.
Parks and Rec Board. They're in charge of everything from sports field to the dog park and things like
Sure.
that.
And we used to have a liaison,
Yeah.
Julie Anderson.
Yeah.
You know, we worked quite a bit with her when we had a committee, and we would like to reform the committee and work with the rec department to maybe make some suggestions on how to make the park safer.
Yeah, I would recommend going to that, the Parks and Rec Advisory
Okay.
Board, of which there's, you know, 7 or 10 citizen members, and it's held here, I think, at least monthly, and be heard there. Is that right, Ms. Williamson, monthly?
it's on the second Monday of every month at 4 p.m.
Second Monday, 4
Yeah.
p.m. Do you
And,
know where?
Here, right here in these chambers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually at the community center.
Oh, at community center, not here, but at the community center.
They're all over there.
Is it on the website now?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Community
calendar.
Center, second Monday?
4
Yeah.
p.m.
Okay.
And Mr. Grant is our Director of Parks and Recreation, and he'd be a good point of contact, as would, I think Mr. Jim Mathis is still the committee head, isn't he, for the Parks and
I
Recreation
think
Committee?
he's a chair.
I know he's
But
on the board, I'm
I-
not sure.
He's on the board.
yeah.
Yeah,
You'll recognize a lot of the people
Right,
on the board.
we've talked to Mr. Grant.
Yeah.
I haven't personally, but I know
Yeah.
some others have.
But I think you bring up some good points. And I don't know if there's a universal elixir here to solve all the problems. Probably anytime you put a bunch of
There
dogs
probably
together.
isn't, but we just don't think what has happened so far has been enough to prevent or be more proactive in preventing instances, because otherwise, a lot of people are just gonna quit going to the dog park.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Not
and
gonna
who's
use
gonna
it.
be up there?
Right.
The aggressive dogs.
I've got a dog that is just militantly non-aggressive. I mean, this dog, she just falls seriously. I mean, you gotta know this golden retriever. And I feel badly for the woman that says she's too afraid to go. I've never had that concern. And my dog will not fight,
Yeah.
chase a squirrel.
Well, we have
wouldn't
another
fight one.
friend that has a golden, her dog was bitten, and it actually has changed that dog's personality to where it's afraid even when she takes it on a walk if she encounters other dogs.
Yeah, no, and I understand
And,
that.
and that dog has been going to the dog park for the last several years, I know, And
Did that
always
person
got-
call the police on it? There is an ordinance
Yeah,
against vicious
sure.
dogs, and they will be fined, and they will be
Okay.
subject to all
All right.
the rules. I mean, the things are in place.
Okay.
But I do come to the Parks and Rec Board meeting and be heard, and maybe there can be a subset, something that they can help work on.
Okay, we'll do that.
But I understand.
I want to ask a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
How often have dogs been left alone? That's
Well,
something I just couldn't tolerate.
I think maybe because of the weather, but there've been people that drive up there, they put their dogs inside the dog park, and then they go sit in their car either to eat or to smoke a cigarette, because you can't smoke or eat in the dog park. And then the dogs are unsupervised completely.
Okay.
And there have been some instances of that. I don't know how often that happens. I have a small dog. I'm usually on the other side. There's usually 3 or 4 dogs on that side. On the big dog side, there might be 10 or 15 if the weather's nice at one time.
We have, I think one of the people that have been banned was someone who dropped their dog off and go to the VA for doctor's appointments for an hour or whatever period of time.
And come back.
And I think one of the other big violations that occur is sometimes people put the big dogs in the little dog park and vice versa. And, you know, it's not good for
Right.
either one. You get a bunch of little, I don't want to say yippy dogs, but, you know, that can, you know, act bigger than they are with the big dogs, and they can get hurt. And a big dog in a small park, you know, we're one of the few dog parks that has a separation. The Johnson County Dog Park, who's won 2 National Gold Medal Awards, it's a free-for-all with all of them. And, I mean, we kind of style, and we have 2.
And
If
it
people
is
need
great.
to abide by the
Yeah,
rules.
and it is a great dog park. I know the rec department is looking at closing the big dog side and opening that middle.
Yeah,
so
when the
grass will grow.
yeah.
For the little dog side, there've been dogs digging moles, and it's almost dangerous just to walk up there now.
Yeah, the moles
Yeah.
were terrible.
Do any of the?
Well, I think
I'm
it's a
sorry.
good idea for you to come to the park.
And we'll-
And we will do that.
Yeah.
We'll
Communication.
pursue it that way.
Better communication.
Yeah, I will encourage
Communication.
people, if I'm out there and somebody tells me their dog got attacked, I'm gonna encourage them, even if it was 2 weeks ago, say, please call on it. If it's a vicious dog, it does not belong there.
Right.
Any other commissioners' comments, or?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten.
Thank you.
and,
Thank you
thanks
very
for
we will-
much. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much. Next item, under general items is.
Any other people want to speak?
No, I'm sorry. Does anybody else, I'm sorry, anybody else from the group or anybody else want to speak?
Okay. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and very good presentation and very good points, and the city will work with the dog owners, and we take a great pride in that particular dog park, and Commissioner Preissner spoke in a very knowledgeable way about it, so I think it's really a good park, and if there's some things that we can do to make it a little bit better, we'll take that into consideration. Next is waiver of distance requirement, temporary liquor license, St. Joseph's and Immaculate Conception Church.
Carla Williamson will handle
Little
this.
change.
Mayor and City Commission,
Hello, Mr. Fink.
How are you?
How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. I'm here again.
Good,
Yes.
good to see you.
This is our 20th, oh, sorry. I guess you got to do it.
this request is for a waiver of the distance requirement for a temporary liquor permit. This doesn't approve the liquor permit, anything. This is just a waiver for the distance. So the code requires that it has to be it can't be within 300 feet of any school, church, nursing home, library, or hospital to allow a temporary liquor license. So obviously, this is within that 300
Right.
feet. So this is the request to waive that fee so that he can request a temporary liquor license. And this is for their annual fundraising events, which I'll give him an opportunity to go and talk about those and plug
Sure.
those a little bit. But like I say, this action by the commission is just to waive that distance requirement. So, Mr. Fink.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I
That's
didn't mean to
okay.
step on you
No
there.
problem.
Just to get excited sometimes. This is our 20th anniversary doing the St. Patrick's Day dinner. And it's in conjunction with the parade.
Yep.
And it's in conjunction, we have a mass every year, and the proceeds are given to the, to the Vincent's Clinic for the fundraiser. So it kind of makes it a spirited thing for the whole St. Patrick's Day. And, you know, what's St. Patrick's Day without a little bit of, you know, beer and a little bit of Irish cream coffee and that. And so it's really well managed. And then we do the German Fest in June, which is another heritage of our St. Joseph Church. So those two parishes were built originally Irish, one was at IC, and St. Joseph was the German parish. So that's kind of how it is. And so we come to you humbly again to ask if you could waiver this, and we'll
What hours are the Irish?
The St. Patrick's Day dinner is from 11 to 2:30, and you need to get there by 2:30 because
What if
Mark
you're there
got
by
there.
2:30 and there's still no food?
Well, you know,
I mean,
it's
that's
just
happened
that
to me.
it happened.
Well, you gotta.
We're gonna, that was.
They do run out. You gotta get there early.
I found out last year.
We've gotta just have.
Yeah, we'll get
enough,
it
but
figured out.
anyway. So, we're gonna add a little bit more this year, but it really does, it's been well, it's done well.
Just check the weather forecast, a nice day.
It is, so you might as well get there by 2, and then you'll know you're getting to see.
This is the start of spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are.
That's right.
And it is the first really fundraiser, so, you know, March, everybody's ready by then to have a little bit of get-together. So
And when is the German one?
it's in June, and
June 13th.
like the
Oh, okay.
21st or
June 13th.
13th.
Yeah.
13th of June.
Good. Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Fink?
No.
Yes,
I just noticed, under the code, you do actually have to have a public hearing and allow, if there are people of the public that want to comment on this, under your code section. So before you do anything, you should invite the public if they have any comment.
Does anybody in our audience, the public, have any comments about this particular agenda item?
Do we have to have a public hearing or just ask for it?
The code says a public hearing and then a finding by the city commission that the proximity and establishment.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into a public hearing to discuss the temporary liquor license at St. Joseph and Immaculate Conception Church events.
And there's a motion and a second on this particular agenda item to go into a special
It's a public hearing on this
public hearing.
agenda item.
Okay, so we will begin voting on this particular agenda item with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ayes have it. Vote is 5-0, so we are now in a public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this particular request from Immaculate Conception St. Joseph Parish?
No?
I do have one question for Mr. Fink.
Okay.
The Glumpke dinner at St. Cashmere, that doesn't fall under this?
No, it doesn't.
You
So
handle
that's, I mean, we all kind of have our own people that.
Yeah, I know that. Well,
They're
St. Joe and
different
Immaculate are two different churches too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're all the same
Okay,
family, but
okay,
it's
but
just
someone
a little
else
different.
asks for that, okay? I didn't know if you were gonna ask for all three of them.
That's how it is, so.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
There's a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. We will begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. Vote is 5-0. So we've closed the public hearing, and so we're now back at having to make a motion on this particular, waiving this particular distance requirement. Is there? Can I entertain a motion from someone?
Yeah, I motion to approve the request to waive the 300-foot requirement from any church, school, nursing home, library, or hospital.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a motion and a second on this particular agenda item in terms of waiving the feet requirement. We will begin voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, motion carries, so we've approved the motion and the exception, the waiver. Thank you.
Good
Give
to
our
go.
best to Father David.
Okay, you guys have a great night.
Take care.
You too.
Okay.
I know that seemed really long.
That's not a conflict of interest.
Unless you have a financial interest
No, we
in
don't.
it.
We don't.
They got a financial interest in me, but every Sunday. But okay, next is the review draft 2019 Kdhe annual report for stormwater.
Public Works Director Mike McDonald will handle this item.
Okay. Hi, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Just as the distance waiver is a rite of, sign of spring is on its way, so is review of the annual state Kdhe stormwater report. The city has been required to prepare a report on requirements for stormwater activities for, I think, almost 20 years at this point. This is an annual report required by Kdhe. And tonight is essentially, I will briefly discuss the executive summary and the comments that staff has on the performance of our program. The goal is to bring back a completed report for commission review and hopefully approval at the meeting on the 25th. The report we prepared last year was, I may have set a record for the state. It was over 400 pages. The actual report portion of it is about a fourth of that or less. The state has revised the reporting requirements related to 2019 stormwater activities to significantly reduce the robustness, if you will, of the report, and we're looking forward to that. The City Commission adopted in 2017 what is known as a stormwater management program. It identifies activities that the city will participate in throughout the course of the year. And within those activities, for this annual report, we prepare summaries of what we have done, how many groups participated in the spring cleanup, how many tons of salt we use on the roads, and that sort of thing. The goal of the federal legislation is to improve water quality through the actions of the permitting process, and the staff is proposing that the report this year be specific and that we have improved water quality to the maximum extent practicable, which is a nice fuzzy legal term. Means we have done the things that we said we were going to do in a manner that is consistent with our ability to do them. We believe, we have confidence that that is a true statement, particularly this last year and also in further review of the 2018. The report, the narratives really talk about what staff believes the city's position on meeting that goal is. There's an executive summary that addresses the areas. The feds have identified what they call 6 minimum control measures related to how we monitor construction activities, what happens after construction. There's a public involvement in stormwater activities. Meetings such as this is a public discussion of our stormwater plan. We've created an executive summary that summarizes the report, and I have created, titled as like comments on section Roman numeral 5, which is staff's position. We'd like the commission to review related to how we've performed on the other measures. There's some important things happened in 2019 that were different than the previous years. It also helped with this report. Since there is a new permit issued to the city that begins in January of 2020, we will be talking about that permit potentially at 2 or 3 study sessions over the course of the spring and summer. We will adopt a new stormwater management plan to take effect in 2021. One of the nice things about that plan, we are not required to do this aggressive stream sampling that many communities are. For years, we've had to do water quality testing, water as it comes into the city, and then test it as it leaves the city, see what the differences are, and if we believe that our programs are meeting the need of removing contaminants. We are blessed by the fact that our streams run into the Missouri River. In Kansas, the Missouri River has not been found to be an impaired waterway, which means that the more onerous requirements of this legislation do not take effect. If your water goes basically anywhere else in the state of Kansas, you have a different requirement. So the Missouri River is a good thing. The other thing that happened is when the EPA came to help us in 2013, they identified several things we should do. I won't say better, but certainly different, mostly record keeping. We have worked hard to meet their expectations and the state expectations. And we were surprised to receive a letter from the EPA saying that we've been released from our consent decree where we agreed to do these things better. That we did not ask for that. It appeared they must have looked at our annual reports and seen the work that we do.
That came in April of 2019?
At some point this spring, yes.
Okay, good.
So that we thought was some level of support for the activities that we're doing.
Sure.
So we've included, say, the executive summary, what was working, what's not working. Now, on the state put kind of page number guidelines on here, how many pages per topic. And that helps a lot because some people in my office, like myself, can generate a lot of writing without too much trouble. And then we identified kind of a summary of the 6 minimum control measures. And I believe that we attached the stormwater management program to the policy report. And say this part of last year's report kind of addresses that. So I ask you this evening, if you have questions on this, please ask them this evening. If you or your constituents have questions past this evening, please contact City Manager's Office or Public Works Engineering, and we will review the report and the information with you. Public involvement is encouraged by the federal government. We list all of the meetings that we've discussed stormwater items are a page in the supporting documentation. We probably are going to just link them back to the agendas and the minutes in the city clerk's office and not print them all out as we've done in the past.
That makes sense.
I have a question.
Sure. Commissioner Bowder?
Any fallout from the discontinuing the leaf collection program? I should say fallout.
Some interesting, we discontinued the leaf collection and then we had a flood. So what do people do with all their leaves? I think they put them out with the trash because the refuse tonnages are up several months this year over what we've seen in the previous years.
Okay.
We haven't fully evaluated that, but I think, I said, where'd all these tons come from? And they looked at me and said, remember the leaves? And I, okay.
Okay.
So I think that's happened. I believe the use of the leaf disposal at the brush site was absolutely hammered by being closed from like March to July or something on that order.
Because of the floods.
The floods, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we mentioned that, we're going over the detail, and that is a specific mention that we were impacted by floods. But to my knowledge, from impact on what we do, so far that's it. I suspect our sweeping tonnages are going to go way up in the spring because there's a lot of leaves that are on the street and turning to mush right now.
Do you have any complaints
I'm not
about discontinuing it?
There was a lot of people wanted to know when we were coming to pick up their leaves.
Yeah.
We explained to them that that wasn't happening this year. We have not had a call in several months now.
Okay.
But there are the two methods, right? I mean, you can bag them up.
Oh, yes.
Or go to the brush site.
And they'll come pick it up.
Right.
Yeah, there's no cost associated with disposing of leaves at the brush site, and there's no cost associated with putting your leaves out for your regular refuse pickup.
Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. McDonald on this particular agenda item? I think we don't have we're not doing anything in terms of an action today, but it's
just review.
To adopt I guess in about 2 weeks, we'll go ahead and have something where we'll make a motion to adopt a resolution supporting the final report at our February 25th meeting. So I think, very good report. I did notice it was a little slimmer than the one last year and then 2018, which is good. And it was,
That's good.
I learned a lot. I thought it was efficiently presented, so thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We will go to the next agenda item, which is Resolution B 2242, Section 8, Management Assessment Program.
So tonight, in front of you for consideration is a resolution to submit the Section 8 Management Assessment Program certification to HUD for the operation of the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. And just a reminder, the Housing Choice Voucher Program is the federal government's major program for assisting very low-income families, the elderly, and the disabled to afford decent, safe, and sanitary housing in the private market. The assessment is an annual process and is in front of you tonight if you have any questions.
I had a question in terms of just, because it makes reference to a waiting list. Do we have any idea of how many names are on the waiting list at any particular point in time? Or if not, we can find that out. But
I know that we typically have a waiting list
Right.
on that. I'm not sure of what the number is currently, but I can definitely
Yeah,
find out for you.
that's good. We don't need to know that tonight. Any other questions or comments on this particular agenda item?
No.
I believe on the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Tedder or Ms. Williamson, I think they have like 200 vouchers or so for Section 8, and there might be 300 people on there.
Sure.
Is that Section 8 or is that VASH?
I think it's.
Both operate similarly.
Okay, but I think, you get X amount of dollars in Section 8, and they break it down to 192 or 200 vouchers, because if you would spread it over 300, the amount that you give out to each one wouldn't be as impactful, as I understand it, as if Mr. Tooley would explain to us, if I am correct. But, yeah, I'd be interested in knowing what the mayor asked for, too. I know that Mr. Tooley has that information just right off the top of his head. He knows every penny of it.
Okay, if there are no further comments or questions on this particular agenda item, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept Resolution B 2242, Section 8 Management Assessment Program.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for this particular agenda item. We'll begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. The vote is 5-0, so we've approved this motion. Next agenda item is Resolution B 2243, authority to finance purchase of fire apparatus with proceeds of bonds.
Carla Williamson again.
Okay.
This resolution is just a resolution. It's not authorizing or approving the contract to purchase the fire truck. We'll do that a couple items down. But this one is just to approve the authority of how we're going to purchase that with the use of the sale of bonds to finance it. And it also sets the maximum amount, principal amount for those bonds at $1,430,000.
And I think we do have some questions, but we can defer that to the agenda item where we'll talk about the
purchase of the truck itself, correct, yes.
So any other questions or comments for Ms. Williamson on this particular agenda item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution B 2243, authority to finance purchase of fire apparatus with proceeds of bonds.
I second.
There's a motion and a second for this particular agenda item. We'll begin voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. The vote is 5-0, so the motion carries. Next agenda item is Resolution B 2244, set limits for general improvement bonds 2020.
And this is a similar resolution before you, and this is, just sets the maximum amount that we can sell bonds in 2020. There is a calculation. It's based off of Charter Ordinance 56, put into place the calculation of 28% of the taxes that are levied by the county clerk's certification that she sends to us from the previous year. So that calculation, those taxes were $6,963,306. So 28% of that sets that maximum amount of $1,949,020. I'm sorry, let me try that again. $1,949,726. That doesn't mean that's going to be the amount that we bond or sell bonds for, but that's just the maximum amount.
Okay.
So this resolution that you're going to approve just sets that maximum amount.
And this is for the city's 2020 asphalt overlay general improvement road projects? Or
It's for the bonds that we'll sell
Right.
to do
to-
those.
to
for
support that
project.
program.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments for our city clerk?
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion on this agenda item.
I move to adopt Resolution B 2244, set limits for general improvement bonds 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on this particular agenda item. We will begin voting on this with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. Motion is 5-0. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Williamson. Next is the consider design contract with Wilson and Company for second Chestnut Stormwater improvement or renovation project, or, so I think Mr. McDonald's probably up for this one, right? Or,
That's correct.
That's it?
okay.
Thank
I
you,
went
sir.
directly to you instead of going through the assistant city manager, but thank you for coming and talking with us tonight about this project, which we've talked about, I think it was probably last week, okay, right, okay.
Yeah, this is kind of a follow-on from the last week's meeting for this stormwater project where we identified, we had guidance on the direction that the design should go with a couple of parts of that. Justin Clout with Wilson and Company is here this evening. If you have questions of him, the contractor, their firm. This is a request that the City Commission approve the design contract for this project, which is currently estimated at about $2.6 million. They will, once this is approved, they will arrange for surveying, the geological or geotechnical testing. They prepare documents associated with any land acquisition of easements and things. Basically double check the final slopes of the pipes and see if there's any economies can be made with materials or alignments and that sort of thing. Our goal is to construct it next year. It's possible it will be in a position for bidding late this year. Mike Cooper has spent a lot of time on this, and I know Justin Clout has as well. We are excited to begin this really substantial drainage project. It touches some of the earliest infrastructure in the city. We're not sure what we'll find when we dig down there, but we'll be looking for it.
I have a question. How long, is there an estimate how long that's going to take once you start surveying all that till?
Probably 4 to 5 months for the engineering contract to be completed.
Okay.
And then the construction, our goal would be to do it in one season, or at least get most of it done, the big stuff done in one season.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McDonald on this particular agenda item? I think it's a very good statement of work. I thought it was very specific and real clear in terms of what the deliverables are, and a lot of work ahead of the company and the city on this, and I thought that was a good question in terms of how long it'll take. And I know that Section 9 talked about construction phase services are not included in this contract, but I mean, there might be, in terms of quality assurance, quality control from this particular company, I mean, that's a possibility going forward, right?
Yes, sir. Our goal is to do the bulk of the inspection with city forces. Circumstances may change where we're not available. I know that they have an inspection, we may need to contract special inspection or a broader inspection. We don't know what that is, but we ask them to be clear what's in and what's not, and currently those costs are not in this contract.
Okay.
Because this is, especially where this jog is in here, it's going to be all new. That's all new, right? There isn't anything currently.
That's a new alignment. The entire system will be all new materials.
Okay.
We'll be taking the old stone and brick and rusted metal pipe, broken down
out.
tiles, old bottles, and who knows what all's in the bottom.
And some of those roads up there were originally brick, weren't they?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that we'll be into some trolley tracks on some of this.
Interesting.
It will be an interesting project.
Well, keep us informed. I know you will. Are there any other questions or comments from Mr. McDonald on this particular agenda item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute. I motion to approve the design contract submitted by Wilson and Company for the second and Chestnut Stormwater project in the amount not to exceed $218,600.
Is that a second? Second. There's a motion and a second on this particular agenda item. We are going to begin voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. Vote is 5-0. So we've approved this particular agenda item, and thank you and good luck, and look forward to this particular project. It's a big one. Next is
It's a fire truck.
consider purchase of fire apparatus. I think
Now
Chief
we have
is.
Fire
sorry.
Chief Gary Birch.
Hi, Chief. How you doing?
Mr. Mayor
Hi.
and Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. If you recall, and I think it was, not everybody currently was back in April, we came at a study session to kind of go over before the budget of this particular apparatus that we're before you tonight to replace. This particular truck that we're requesting to replace tonight is one of 7 apparatus that we have. And we have a few different types, so I have some photos, just going to just briefly kind of touch base on that. And then I'll get into the specific of this particular truck. The picture that you see up there is what we refer to an engine here. Some cities call them pumpers, but basically they're a triple combination Class A pumper. They have a pump. In this case, it's a 1,500 gallon per minute pump. They carry 500 gallons of water, and it has hose. And then it has supply line, which is a 4-inch hose that we would stop and connect to a fire hydrant to lay out. The primary function of this is to get water on the fire. We like to say get the wet stuff on the red stuff. Okay, that's the primary function. But also this is what we roll out on all EMS calls and stuff. We have a captain and a driver and a firefighter on each one of these trucks. This is what we call a quint. And what a quint is, it's a triple combination, got pump, hose, and water. It also has an aerial device of some sort. In this case, that's a 75-foot ladder. And it has a complement of ladders. It has more ladders than the pumper company, the engine. So that's referred to as a quint. Mm-hmm. And a few years ago, out of the 7 apparatus, we actually had 5 pumpers. We had 3 aerial ladders. When we purchased the 3 engines back in 2017, we actually took this one out of our fleet. So we have 1 quint, which is there, quint 1, and then this is the truck that we're looking at replacing. This is a 1990 aerial platform. It has a platform on it. It doesn't have hose. It doesn't have a water tank. It doesn't have pumping capabilities. It's strictly it carries tools and stuff. Has compartments for tools and stuff. But it's primarily for big water supply or some type of a rescue stuff out of that basket. But it's 30 years old, and that's the one we're specifically talking about tonight. Mm-hmm. Some of the goals that we looked at is we looked for, when we started our plan. We're kind of in phase 2 of our overall purchase of our fleet. Out of the 7 trucks we had, like I said, we had 2 that didn't have any pumping capabilities, and we also. Prior to 2017, the apparatus purchase plan was we would replace 1 truck every 4 years. So 4 times 7, that's 28. That keeps you an older fleet when you're doing that. That's a little longer than recommended, and we get into a lot of maintenance issues. In fact, at one point after I was here 1 month, because we had trucks broke down, we only had 2 working pumpers in the system. In our system till we got some of the reserves repaired. So at that point, I decided we need more versatility. So we had a rescue truck at that time. And think of a pop truck or a beer delivery truck is what it was. Carried a lot of equipment, didn't have pumping capabilities, and this truck didn't. After this purchase, all 7 of our vehicles will be able to pump water if they need to be. Mm-hmm. Now that wouldn't be its primary function like the engine company I showed you, the pumper. But it has that capabilities. It gives us some redundancy in the system, and that's kind of what we were wanting, trying to achieve. And also we had out of the 7 trucks, I think we had 5 different manufacturers, makes and models, which makes it a little more difficult for drivers going from one truck to another. It makes a difference when it goes over to the shop for buying parts and stuff like that, you have a special order of oil filters and different things of the different makes and models. One of our goals was to try to get everything under one manufacturer, one type of manufacturer. So we're real close to doing that. Also, a Pierce fire apparatus was one of the larger manufacturers in the country. Pierce Manufacturing also does Oshkosh. Some people are familiar with Oshkosh. So it's a large company. Everything is manufactured all under one roof and stuff. Other trucks that we had, it may be like a Ferrari Spartan or two different ones. So sometimes you'd have trouble. You'd have something broken and you'd want to replace this. Well, they said, well, that belongs to the other one. You got to call the other people. So it just made it very difficult. One of the advantages of the Pierce apparatus, there's a lot of them in the metropolitan area. We have a Pierce dealership in Olathe, Kansas. So for warranty work and stuff, it makes it really handy to have something for a local vendor. And in the goal to add another pump and capabilities in our fleet, reduce the age of our fleet, increase safety, dependability, and operational functionality. When you have a truck of that age, like for example, you only have a lap seat belt. It doesn't have airbags, doesn't have backup cameras. There's just a lot of things it doesn't have that the newer trucks have. And so we want to try to achieve all these goals with the minimum amount of increase in funding. And then also, we just went through our ISO rating, and we're 2 on our ISO rating, Insurance Service Office. And so we want to maintain that. And the way we're currently deployed, our apparatus are deployed, we could have gained some additional points had we used this apparatus a little bit different. With not having to pump on water, it kind of limited how we could do it. So we have some plans to kind of once we get a new truck, kind of redeploying how we do it. So we take advantage of the aerial ladder for the downtown, which gives us more points. Because my goal is to get to that ISO 1. That's the goal I'd love to achieve. And it's there's really less than, I just looked at, there's less than 1% that's an ISO 1 in the country. So we're at 2, which that's pretty good too.
That's good.
Where we're at there is, I think it's about 3.8 cities have a rating of a 2 in the country.
Good.
NFPA recommends the replacement of the pumper engines every 10 to 15 years. Currently, we're on a 15-year plan. And of course, that depends on the number of calls in larger cities. At another city that I used to work at, a larger city, we actually was around an 8-year because of the number of calls and stuff, and wear and tear on apparatus. Your aerial ladders, because they're not necessarily running all the EMS calls. Now, if it was staffed and we had other units out, it would definitely respond to that EMS call, but it's not the primary, so it's going to make less like EMS calls and stuff. So a little less wear and tear. So the aerial ladders, trucks of this nature, they recommend 15 to 20 years on those. Okay, like I said, currently this truck here is 30 years old. With this, and like I said, with this purchase, 5 of our 7 apparatus will be from one manufacturer, and all 7 trucks will have pumping capability. With the new truck, we'll have 3-point seat belts, some of the safety features, airbags, backup cameras, and the crew cab. You can't really see it here, but basically a 4-door, so everybody's inside, a little quieter and stuff. You can hear the firefighters that would be facing backwards would be on the outside on this truck. Of course, when I started, some of them didn't even have tops on at all. You don't believe it or not, but it seems like that was just yesterday. And the interior of the new truck's got more padding and stuff, so it's for sound, for the sirens and air horns. Those has been around a long time, have a little bit of hearing deficit, just from the noise and stuff over the years. Some of the uses of this truck, because of the aerial ladder, is search and rescue for upper floors. You can use that if you have people up in higher floors that needs rescued. You can go up and extract them from the window or balcony, something of this nature. Firefighters can gain access up from the outside to go in and do a search. It also can be used not just fire, but also be used from some type of injury. If you had someone like a roofer up on a building or some machinery up higher somewhere that gets injured, we could use it to go up and use the Stokes bass to get them down. It can also be used for an anchor point. If you had someone even down in a hole or a confined space where we could bring ropes down and go down and, use it for an anchor point above something. So it gives a lot of versatility. It also provides you, if you have a body of water and don't want to put someone out in the water, maybe stuck on the roof of a car, you can extend that thing out there and it drops down to pick someone off of the top of a car or something of that nature. And kind of the instant priorities where I'm going through, the rescue is always number one, life safety. Fire control is the second instant priority. And this truck actually has a capability, the pump on it's going to be a 2,000 gallon per minute pump on this truck. And then that's at draft. So it's rated at 2,000. I know I put 1,000, 1,500 here, but it's a 2,000 gallon minute pumper. When you hook a hydrant to it where you have water flowing to it, it'll actually could pump even more than 2,000 gallons of water. It gives you exposure protection. You get, I always think of the older downtown area. It gives you exposure protection because a lot of times you almost have to write off the building that's heavily involved and try to start protecting structures on the other side. And that's what this elevated stream does for you. Helps knock down flying embers and things of that. It also, you can be used for, a lot of times on interior high-rise buildings, you have standpipes where we go in and we go up, we have hose and we hook into a standpipe and an engine will pump water into that pipe in the stairwells. This can actually, we have a standpipe basically on the outside. We can put people up and they can deploy line through a window or balcony or something to get a little quicker water on the fire. So we can use it for the outside standpipe. So it's got a lot of functionalities. There's just some pictures of like where you could do a water rescue. It actually, these trucks nowadays have so much safety features, the way they're engineered and stuff, they can do a lot of things. Used to be you couldn't get a truck to go below grade like that, but they have a lot of versatility now. This is just a picture showing going up to ventilate a roof. Rather than put a ladder up here, then scaling up the roof here, and actually you have a safe platform. That roof was to collapse or come through. You may get a little heat, but you back out and wouldn't be going into the roof. So it just gives you a lot of things. That kind of shows a picture there, cutting a ventilation hole, simulated there. You got a saw and stuff. You can work off a very safe platform.
That's the ISO thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the ISO thing that we look at. And they look at, like I said, look at our dispatch center, our water distribution, which we're very good here, and then the operations of the fire service. So we're just looking at ways too. We need this truck, but in addition to that, we're looking at ways. I'd love to get us down to an ISO 1. And I did them at 3.8% in the country right now is ISO 2. So we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Is that something that is looked at every year or just every few years?
Every 5 years.
Every 5.
And the insurance companies look at that, kind of base their rates and stuff.
That's good.
Yeah.
I have a question. How high does that ladder go, that new,
The
or
ladder,
extend?
that's a 100-foot area, and they measure it from the bottom of the platform, where we'd be standing, to the ground.
Okay,
And so, if you're 6 foot, you get 100, anybody can reach up 6 foot.
right.
106, yeah.
And I say that, and that's I think at 80 degrees. Okay, now as far as reaching 100 building, it's kind of like the hypotenuse theory. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, depending on how close you can get.
Yeah.
You can get these aerials with a mid mount, where the aerial's mounted right behind the cab, and the basket hangs out the back. It's been my experience, because I've worked on both, have the rear mounted, because you can take and kind of back towards where you need it, and it gives you more reach and stuff towards the building. So 100 foot.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
How many miles do you have on a 30-year-old truck?
yeah.
I was curious about that.
You know what, I don't know how many miles.
Miles or hours?
And
miles
see, that's
would be
another
miles,
thing.
wouldn't it? It's
Now,
like
this
a
one didn't have a pump up.
vehicle.
A lot of times, like the pumpers, they're sitting there, they have engine hours because they're running a lot.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Interesting.
Where's it gonna be? It's gonna be built in Wisconsin at a factory?
Yes.
Okay.
Appleton,
So it's gonna
Wisconsin.
take about a year to get after you order it, right?
Yes, it takes about a year to manufacture it, and it doesn't take them that long to build the thing, but you kind of get in line and queue.
You're on a list, right?
And I'm not sure how long when they actually start. I think the pumpers were only like a month, but it took over a year to get it. We usually, and one of the other things that's really helps us here, like when we was doing our engines, trying to spec them out, we went actually next door to Lansing. They had got a new Pierce pumper, and then we went and looked at some others. It makes it nice when you can go actually look and kind of. So that's what we did here. We looked at KCK, we looked at KC Mill. KC Mill ordered a whole bunch of them. Liberty ordered one about 4 years ago, so I took some of my staff over and we kind of we like the cabin stuff on this one, we like the compartments on this one, so it really made it nice to make it custom to our needs here in Leavenworth.
How much would the old one be worth to sell then, or will it be?
Well, I'm not quite sure how we're gonna do that yet. We may do the purple.
Good question.
The purple wave on it. The other trucks, we actually kind of did a trade-in.
Trade-in.
And there's companies that buy and refurbish vehicles. And for the ones the 3 that we had gotten rid of on the last time, we got funding for that.
Right.
I went ahead and had them look at all these back 4 years ago. So my original plan kind of that I presented to the manager at that time was to replace this when we did those. And they didn't really want to buy it at that. They said, we really are not interested even in purchasing that. It's got a lot of steel on it, so I don't know what the steel is, but it still runs, everything.
So would you keep it then for a backup or something?
No.
Museum.
No, we won't be keeping it.
It's just 30.
We won't be keeping it for backup. We need to get rid of it. We don't have the
just
space
curious
to bring
about
it
that.
in.
Did you ever see
What the
that
value
place
of
at
it
Victory
was.
Junction, Legends Automotive? They had a ladder truck there.
Yeah.
I did.
And then a cherry picker on different.
Was that for sale back then?
Yeah, it
or
was,
what?
yeah. Anything there on
I
that
wondered
lot
what it
is
was
for
doing there.
sale.
There was one sitting, I think it's the old Kmart building down here for a
I
while.
could
Yeah.
have used one for painting a mural.
Yeah.
I have a question about periodic services on your, current fire equipment and the fire trucks. Who does that? Does our city do that, or does?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. For the, what I'll call preventive maintenance, the oil change, lube, filters, we take them over to the city garage and they do that.
And it's something like at a higher level?
Right,
or-
like the new ones we get, like this has a Cummins diesel, the current ones, it has a 5-year warranty on the diesel itself. So we usually hear the Cummins dealers over back behind Worlds of Fun, so we'll take it over there.
Okay.
We had some issues recently, and we also took one of our trucks out to Kenworth, out in Olathe.
Okay.
But the things under warranty would be Conrad, and then we have another individual, has a company, he lives out like in Gardner, and he actually comes to our station, and he, like, the trucks that maybe have pumps are leaking, or anything that's fire related, we have an individual that specializes in that. But the basic PMs and brakes, we take them over to our shop, tires.
Okay, that's good to know. Any other questions or comments for the fire chief on this particular agenda item? If not, anything else, chief, or I'll consider a motion on this purchase of this fire apparatus.
I move that approval of the purchase of the Pierce aerial platform through Conrad Fire Equipment, utilizing the HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program in the amount not to exceed $1,397,528.15.
I second.
There's a motion and a second for the purchase of this fire apparatus that we've been talking about and that we've been briefed on. We will begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Okay. The ayes have it. 5-0 is the
16
vote.
cents.
And
Only 15
so the
cents.
motion carries, so just keep us apprised, chief.
Yes.
Sounds like a good.
Mr. Tedder, is that the new video system?
No, sir, we haven't installed them yet.
Oh, okay. Those
That's the
pictures
old
look
one.
real nice.
Yeah.
Better
There's
than.
a,
Yeah.
They'll be way better than that.
Oh, well, I mean, those are good looking.
Thank you,
pictures.
Chief
Maybe
Birch.
the- that-
Chief.
The chief made.
The chief
took
made took good pictures, that's
That's
why.
right.
The new, device.
Video.
iPhone 11.
yeah, and we especially like the getting a tutorial on firefighting. I mean, that was good. I learned a lot, so good. Next is first consideration ordinance to amend section 8-63 human exposure to zoonotic disease by animals.
Back to Carla Williamson for this item.
Zoonotic.
Right. Zoonotic, yeah, zoonotic, yeah.
So this is first consideration to change a section of the code. As some of you may remember, we did a complete recodification of the code last year. And in this section, there were two different sections. There was one that was exposure to diseases from dogs and cats, and one was all other animals. And they basically said the same thing, so we just combined them into one section. The heading of the section did not get changed properly, And so it currently says human exposure to zoonotic diseases by animals other than dogs and cats. And then it goes on, and then, so it doesn't say anything, our code doesn't currently say anything about dogs and cats diseases that are carried by them and transmitted to humans. So we just need to change that heading. So this ordinance would
So it's
accomplish
basically an
that.
administrative
Yeah,
change.
and I think of all the things that we did in the code, I think to have found one error so
Sure.
far is pretty darn good, so.
Well, I'm glad you found it, but good. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Williamson on this particular agenda item? If not, is there a consensus to move this ordinance along for final consideration at a future meeting?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes? Okay,
Yes.
we
Yes.
have that consensus, and that's what we'll do. Thank you. We're gonna, the next agenda item, before we go into executive session, we've got a state legislative issue that I believe the Assistant City Manager is gonna give us a little brief on.
Yes, so Kansas State Senate Bill 294 has recently been brought to staff's attention by the Kansas League of Municipalities. The league is in full opposition of Senate Bill 294. The bill is loosely based on the Utah Truth in Taxation statute, and that bill would require taxing entities to either set a mill levy based on levying the same amount of property tax in dollars as the year prior, or go through the process to have a truth and taxation hearing. And in order to have that hearing, the taxing entity is required to have the county clerk send a notice to every property taxpayer listing in the city, among other things, and tell them in that letter exactly how much their property tax would increase. The taxing entity would then be required to reimburse the county clerk for those costs. Taxing entities would be required to notify the county clerk by August 1st of the year for the need of the hearing, and hold that hearing by September 15th. So then the governing body would be required to vote at that meeting on the tax increase after the hearing concludes. And we believe the bill's flawed for the following reasons. It is not the Utah model. It does not allow for new growth. It just allows for it to stay the same. It creates a complicated process where the Division of Administration is responsible for checking the math of the entities on their certified mill levy. It's caused steep tax increases in Utah. Only one taxing entity can have a hearing at one time. And for example, there are 89 different taxing jurisdictions in Sedgwick County. So I'm not sure how one at a time would be able to move forward. There's no exemption for law enforcement, fire, or EMS. There's no exemption for the consumer price index increases. There's no exemption for new growth or expiring tax abatements. And it also does not remove the current tax lid, and the truth and taxation process does not work with a tax lid election. And the bill would require any excess tax revenue to be returned to taxpayers, which means that it's possible that the cost of the mailings would exceed that refund. So since the league is in full opposition of this bill, and they believe it's a direct intrusion into local control, city staff believes that it would directly impact the city and our ability to maintain local control through the checks that we currently have in place, which are local elections. My recommendation is a motion from the City Commission to have staff express full opposition to this bill to our delegation. So I'm here for any other questions.
What is the number of the bill and the title of it?
It's Senate Bill 294.
294. Okay.
Truth and taxation, is it, or what's it called?
Yeah, what's it called?
Senate Bill 294.
Just Senate Bill 294.
And I guess the, whoever, the senators who sponsored this was based on a study by the Tax Foundation. I don't know, probably, I don't know. I just, that was part of the read ahead that we got. I don't know, does anybody know do you have any idea what the Tax Foundation is? If not, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what the Tax Foundation, I think a lot of this came out of a group that the Kansas Chamber was involved in.
Okay.
That had seen some issues itself with that the original tax lid maybe was not accomplishing what they thought it would do. in terms that, cities were, inflating their taxes maybe when they didn't need to, because of the fears that if they didn't, then they would lose the ability in other years to do it. And so that this was seen as a proposal for it. I think the biggest point that I've seen most cities have objected to, of course, is the administrative burden of doing this, the notices of that. But also another key point that a lot of cities have objected to is the idea of the new growth. There's a difference between perhaps, my house that is existing appraising in value and, and having maybe additional tax from that. It's another thing to say that if a brand new house or subdivision or whatever is added to the community, that you also cannot, you still have to use the same dollars and not have additional funds for that entire new subdivision. That might be street repairs, additional police officer, things like that, that you cannot use. Essentially, you have to stick with the dollar amount of the previous year and disregard whether your community grew at all at any point.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions for either our attorney or the assistant city manager on this particular agenda item? I will just say that it appears to be highly problematic in terms of Senate Bill 294. And to me, it's a pretty direct assault on the principle of home rule authority, which is based on the Kansas Constitution and is the single most important source of a city's legal authority to act. So, I mean, that's, in principle, that's, what's going on here, and I think it's a problem. And, I mean, looking at the league's kind of governing, their pamphlet in terms of some good information that they give to elected officials that says home rule is the right of the people of every city, no matter the class, to govern themselves by enacting and administering laws concerning local matters. So I certainly am supportive of us making a motion to give the assistant city manager the authority to get with our legislative delegation and express our full opposition to the bill, Senate Bill 294.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on this particular, okay, that's good. There's a motion and second on this particular agenda item, so we will begin voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. So, Mr. Tedder, you have your marching orders, and thank you for laying that out for us.
Thank you, and we'll also possibly look at providing written or oral testimony as a.
Yeah, keep us informed on that one.
That's
but,
good.
I appreciate letting us know in a timely fashion about that particular bill and some of the problems with it. Okay, next, think here. I think I'm going to go into.
The consent agenda first.
Oh, consent agenda. I'm sorry. Yes, consent agenda.
Okay, I move to approve claims for January 25th, 2020 through February 7th, 2020 in the amount of $2,214,096.16. Net amount for payroll number 3, effective January 31st, 2020, in the amount of $357,680.70. No police and fire pension.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. The bill is 5-0. So we've approved the consent agenda for today's meeting. Thank you. We are going to go next into executive session, so I need to make a motion. So I move to recess into executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property pursuant to the preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property exception per KSA 75-4319B6. The open meeting to resume in the City Commission chambers at, how long do you think we'll need, Mr. Tedder?
I think 15 minutes.
Okay. Let's
And if you'd like to do ending comments before we go
Yeah.
into executive session.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's good recommendation. So before,
Because we don't have any other
we
business.
vote on this particular motion, we will go ahead and I'll start with you.
Okay. We've had great weather, but sounds like that's about to end. So just so you know, our crews will be starting to pre-treat the roads at 4 a.m. This morning. They'll be using 400 pounds per mile. of our brine mixture, and they'll be working their shift until noon on Wednesday, and at that time, we'll reevaluate and continue to plow and treat the slick roadways as required, so stay safe.
Okay, anything else?
Not right now.
Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything?
Sir.
Okay, yeah, I do. The city manager, Paul Kramer, and I attended last Friday. It's called the Lansing Power Lunch, and it was at the community center. And this is basically the state of the city for the city of Lansing, for the business leaders out there. And most of the information was about city events, utility projects, and a status update on residential and commercial projects. And I know the big buzz out there is, of course, everyone knows, can't wait till Quick Trip gets done. Okay, and my.
Can't wait until that intersection gets.
Well, and that too. Yeah, I hear a lot about that too. They said Quick Trip's nice, but what about the intersection? Yeah. Okay. So, okay, and the second event, which was brought up earlier, is this Saturday, and I bought my ticket already for the Susan B. Anthony 200th Anniversary Birthday Luncheon. It's from 12 to 2:30 at June's Northland. I know there's limited tickets because I talked to someone at the museum today, so, and there's limited seating, so make sure you go and purchase your ticket. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Preisinger?
My wife and I attended a fundraiser for St. Vincent's Clinic last Saturday night, held at Tenpenny Restaurant. A great event, a lot of donations from various businesses in the city, well attended. Joe Lazinski, you know, Joe is the barber out of Price Chopper. He was the auctioneer, did an outstanding job, and I think they raised a lot of money for St. Vincent's Clinic. And you know, St. Vincent's Clinic is a jewel in the city of Leavenworth. It's very necessary for those folks that kind of are under the, you know, do not have health coverage, and St. Vincent's Clinic
And that,
provides
yeah,
so
that's
much
this
for
weekend,
them, and they did a good job in raising some money for them. I know they have other fundraisers during the year, but that was a big one last Saturday night.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowder?
I don't have anything.
Did you have something?
No, well, like he was saying, Snowflake Streak, that actually is this weekend too.
There's a lot of events.
There is,
Yeah, this city has
There's a
no
lot
shortage of
going on.
those,
Too
those
much
good
to mention.
events.
That's Saturday as well.
Yeah, I do. Right away.
You know about them all.
No, the only thing I have is that time is flying. I mean, we're already in almost at the middle of February of this new year. And so I do have the mayor's next guest column coming out on Thursday. So I just wanted to give my fellow commissioners a heads up, and I'll send it to Mr. Tedder, and he can send it out to you tomorrow if you want to look at it before it comes out on Thursday. That's completely up to you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to get back to the
You
motion.
want me to move?
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be good. And I think, what time, yeah, I did.
Okay. I move to recess into executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property pursuant to the preliminary discussion of the acquisition of real property exception per KSA 75-4319, subsection B6. The open meeting to resume the city commission chambers at
8:40.
8:40.
Yeah.
Second.
By the clock in the city of commission chambers. Assistant City Manager Taylor Tedder, Public Works Director Mike McDonald, and the city attorney David Waters are requested to be present during the executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. And are we gonna, when we come back, do we have any business to conduct after we come back?
There's not
On this-
anticipated, no.
Okay, all right, so there's a motion and a second to go into executive session until 8:40 PM, although we'll go ahead and start voting with Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, motion carries, so we are in executive session, and we'll return here at 8:40. We are back in open session now, and I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn this evening's commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion carries, so we're adjourned. That's an easy one.